Hello and welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where it's our 17th anniversary! Late to the party, you say? Who gives a rat's ass? We still have our annual celebration of this show. We've seriously been doing this for 17 years, and we've still got more Clone Saga to tell! You already know the story by now of the Clone Saga being extended because the marketing department insisted it be extended. But one of the other reasons why the Clone Saga felt like it was taking so long was simply that non-major stuff was happening during it too. Sure, these reviews have spotlighted multi-parters in the Clone Saga, but the simple truth is that we were still getting the occasional book that, yeah, featured the Scarlet Spider, but it didn't actually advance the Clone Saga storyline. Yes, complex machinations of various supervillains and mysterious new characters, long-dead characters returning, or long-established characters dying or leaving, sure, but regular superhero life was still happening for Peter and Ben. There weren't a lot of this sort of comic because everything was just so entangled in the mess that was the Clone Saga, hopping from one of the multiple Spider-Man books to another, but they did still occur. I talked about it a little bit during the Mark of Cain review, but Spider-Man Unlimited was a quarterly title that had a fair share of standalone stories, anthology short stories, or parts of larger narratives. For instance, its first two issues bookended Maximum Carnage, or the unnecessary Part 5 of Mark of Cain. A unique thing at the time was that it was a more expensive book, printed with glossy stock paper that became the standard of the industry in the 2000s. The comic we'll be talking about today is still pretty early in the saga, being released at the same time as Web of Death, though given some details in it takes place afterwards. And I know some people are upset that we still haven't moved past Sensational Spider-Man number 0 in terms of the story of the Clone Saga, but a few things to keep in mind. One, I feel it's a good way to remind you why the storyline is so infamous by letting you experience the slog as well. Two, even double-sized, this is a single comic to cover, which makes it much easier to write a review. Three, there is so much that happened before we got to Sensational Spider-Man number 0. There are still a few more storylines, the time Scarlet Spider was part of the New Warriors, and let's not even get into the retcons, where we had an entire Unlimited issue that was devoted to making a retcon to another retcon, and it's just a massive, boring exposition dump for dozens of pages. What I mean is, let's enjoy something fun and easy for this anniversary by digging into Spider-Man Unlimited number 8.
Welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. Linkara's gonna teach you all a lesson you won't learn. What's with these awkward subjects? What's all this art so rubbish? To anyone who's had a bad comic published, it could be your turn. Linkara, he is a man, punch, sporadically a grouch. Linkara, he has his own spaceship, but he's always on his couch. Linkara, ghosts, gods, a universe in flux. Linkara, this comic sucks. Linkara.
Normally wouldn't look at a cover for something since it's inside of a trade, but, what the hell, it's a single issue. The cover's just kind of meh. Scarlet Spider, running? Falling? Doing stretches? Whatever he's doing it in the air while a kaiju-sized Spider-Man emerges from New York. Yeah, it's just artistic license, but this is the sort of thing that implies that Ben is living in Peter's shadow or something. But as the blurb says, Spider-Man and Scarlet Spider together in one giant-sized adventure. So, they're both here, so what the hell? We open in New York during a snowfall. The subway entrances are jammed with people who are heading for home in their post-workday trances, shuffling along with the sameness of each and every day of their lives. A Red Skull threatened to destroy Brooklyn, Loki has transformed the Empire State Building into a dark conduit for hellish power, and the C-Train smells like pee again! They should remember, things do change. Oh god, now the C-Train smells like grape jelly and mustard! Three guys in generic golden armor fly out of the subway station. Snow? Where does freaking snow come from? Snow comes from precipitation that forms when water vapor freezes, a result of low temperatures affecting humidity in the atmosphere. So, what can we infer about this snow then, golden boy? Apparently it wasn't snowing when they entered the subway, but they provide some additional exposition. It's not bad enough that a subway fire makes us come out further from the World Trade Center than we planned. Now we got snow on top of that? So, did they go into the subway dressed like that, or were they planning on changing at the towers but had to hastily pop all that on because of the fire? Well, there are the Twin Towers, dead ahead! You know the show has been going on for 17 years, when in the early days I'd react with horror in regards to a comic featuring a terrorist attack on the Twin Towers. And nowadays, I'm just like...
Ha 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 ha! Your costume is ridiculous!
We cut to the fictional Skyline restaurant in the top floor of the World Trade Center. There was a restaurant in the North Tower there, but it wasn't called that. Where Mary Jane Watson is having dinner with a friend of hers named Carly. Carly, you don't know what a change I've seen in Peter ever since he found out that I was pregnant. Now he only wakes up screaming about Gwen Stacy 3 times every night. Well, I'm sure it must be important to both of you. I don't know, Carly. I can't imagine something like a pregnancy being that important to a couple. The Golden Terrorists smash through a window at the restaurant and start opening fire, evidently shooting several people before their leader finally tells them to stop. They need some of them alive as hostages. They stop the people from fleeing out the exits, and we get this splash page where... I'm not sure if this is just artistic license implying these two guys are talking while far away, or if they're actually supposed to be floating in the air like this. Apparently they had an original plan, but the subway fire screwed up said plan, and whatever it was, they've now switched to the hostage situation. But things are going pretty smoothly for us now. For Terror Unlimited! Call our toll-free number or visit our website for all your terrorism needs. It's the armor, man. It's making things so easy for us. We'll be cruising that island in the Pacific soon with babes all over us. I don't know, man. I'm no expert in the economics of this, but I feel like several suits of flying, machine gun-equipped golden power armor would cost more than your little retirement in the Pacific.
This is starting to sound like a bad comic book plot.
We cut over to Ben Reilly meeting a guy named Rich. Rich is a homeless guy who he had met in the previous Spider-Man Unlimited issue, having helped him from a group of muggers. Rich just wanted to thank him for trying to help, even though he didn't want to reveal he had powers, having to go and switch to Scarlet Spider before returning to deal with them, and that it was kind of inspiring for him, helping him get his life back on track. They're now both living in the same hotel. If you're living here, then you should come and have a cup of coffee with me sometime. Please, I'm desperate for some recurring supporting characters. They keep introducing them and then vanishing on me. The guy is volunteering on a mission, so can't right now. Ben is in his place reading the newspaper about Doc Ock's then recent death. Ben Reilly is a man whose life is based on memories. The memories of Peter Parker, the man he was cloned from. The news Ben Reilly is reading has just shattered one of those memories. Summit kaput? Superman says drop dead to kid? He decides to go web-slinging to clear his head, doing so in another splash page. Listen, guys, we got like 50 pages to fill up in this issue. Just have the Scarlet Spider swinging around a cluster of buildings that look like they're all kitty-cornered together. What's that? No, of course they don't all need to have windows on them. Ink costs money. Just paint a few lines on them and call it a day. Yeah, it's not actually that important, but a page like this really does feel like padding. We cut over to Peter Parker as he arrives at his brownstone, finding a note from Mary Jane that informs him she's going out to dinner. I'm going to dinner with Carly at the Skyline restaurant. Maybe I'll see you swinging over the city as we look out over the rooftops of Manhattan. If you're reading this, though, I guess I won't. Love you, MJ. P.S. I made sure to write this letter so all the words are at a weird diagonal across the page so that the audience could read it even with the panel borders around it. Back over to the World Trade Center. 1,300 odd feet below the Skyline restaurant and the terror that has just begun inside of it, the New York City police are gathering their finest to deal with the crisis of Terror Unlimited.
We think we're dealing with a supernatural being, most likely a mummy.
The police negotiator, Dan Carr, contacts the terrorists. Look, Dan, we're Terror Unlimited, and we in the drones, well, we're looking for cash. We're hoping to pick up some side gigs. Do you have any paid internships available? They also demand a Concorde out of the country. Carr says that it can be arranged, but it'll take a lot of time to get them. No delays! We want it now! I know you have a Concorde in your wallet! Empty it out now, damn you! To motivate the cops to do this faster, he shoots out a pair of missiles from the top of the tower to somewhere nearby. And it turns out to be the mission where Rich was working. Why? Why'd you do that? I told you I'd get what you want, and that I'd get it as fast as possible. Well, Danny, we don't feel you taking us serious enough. And unfortunately, we couldn't afford any pink smoke to demonstrate how serious we are. He also says that they have a nuclear bomb with them. So if you're keeping score, they can afford flying power armor, guns with many bullets, missiles, and now a nuke. Between this and the college professor with his many massive secret high-tech laboratories for making clone armies, I'm beginning to wonder if comic creators in the 90s understood how much things cost. Meanwhile, Ben has failed to find any bad guys to beat up, but spots the missile explosion and swings over to investigate. At the Daily Bugle, Ken Ellis is complaining to Robbie Robertson that Phil Urich is being dispatched to cover the terror attack. Ken, however, says he can cover the human interest side of... See, I thought it was Robbie Robertson that Ken was talking to because, well, that's who you would expect, but no, it's this white guy. And no, it was not corrected for the trade collection either, and I did try to see if there was some other Robbie character who worked at the Daily Bugle, but I couldn't find anything on the lists of employees out there. And there's nothing saying there can't be two Robbies in editorial positions at the paper, but it just seems weird to me to have some rando for this be named Robbie when you could just, have Robbie Robertson, the established Spider-Man supporting character. One of the two lead terrorists dispatches 4 of the drones, as he calls them, to go set up the bomb over in an elevator of the other tower. Both of the leaders have a remote for the bomb so as to make it harder for the cops to stop them. However, as they're flying over, one of them gets shot down with a single bullet. They spot that it's not the cops, but a security guard who shot him with, I guess, a pistol? Because I don't think the tower security guards had sniper rifles. Okay, so maybe the power armor was really cheap given a single handgun can take someone down by shooting it in the side. Not even in the engine they use for flight or whatever. The masked leader, who is apparently named David, shoots down the security guard, but one of his subordinates reports the drone who was shot down was carrying the bomb detonator. The Scarlet Spider arrives at the destroyed mission and begins sifting through the rubble looking for survivors. He does find a few, but sadly he also finds Rich's dead body. After he finishes looking for survivors, he's informed of the missiles coming from the World Trade Towers and heads off before Ken Ellis can interview him. Inside the restaurant, a man goes up to one of the terrorists and asks if his son can use the bathroom. And the terrorist shoots him out of annoyance. This remake of Die Hard is going off in some weird directions. To compound that, Mary Jane is pissed about the senseless shooting and goes up to the other lead terrorist, Don, to angrily complain about what the drone did. There's a man dying over there and it's your fault. You should get him to a doctor soon. I don't think that's gonna be possible, my dear. But would you settle for this? And he shoots his own subordinate! Dude, there were not a huge amount of you to begin with, and you're down 2 now. Plus, we just demonstrated that a regular handgun can take you down. Maybe a vocal reprimand first? Plus, this is just creating a hostile work environment for Terror Unlimited. I would not want to work for this company. Now, that should even things out. Everyone should be happy! Wait, crap, there are more hostages than terrorists. Any volunteers to help even this out? Mary Jane spots a figure climbing the other tower and figures it must be Peter, so she decides to concentrate on helping the hostage who was shot. Where Peter actually is at home in the shower, listening to the radio. Right when Plot Convenience News lets him know about the terrorist attack. Thanks, Eric. Police have confirmed that yet another hostage has been murdered by the terrorists calling themselves Terror Unlimited. Yes, we know. We'll give you all a minute to finish laughing. Time for Spidey's splash page across some detailless buildings. Though honestly, this one looks a little better because, 1, we've got the snow falling, so it creates more of a sense of a wintry atmospheric haze instead of just lacking distinctive features, and 2, the buildings don't look like they're clumped into a weird corner. Ken Ellis interviews some store owners who had been dicks to Rich from the previous Unlimited issue, But that is not at all relevant to this story, and I don't even know if this gets followed up on anywhere else. So we'll skip that and go back to the terrorists, who managed to retrieve the detonator from their dead comrade. Don shoots a missile at a newscopter, thinking it contains more police, so Peter has to go and save the people inside of it instead of going after the detonator. Still, he shoots a spider tracer onto one of them. He sets up a web net between the twin towers to catch the falling helicopter. Oh man, I've suddenly got a great idea for a teaser trailer for a Spider-Man movie. Spidey talks to Carr, who gets him up to date about the hostage situation and the nuke. He explains that while the nuke is their priority, it's best if he focus on the hostages for now. And indeed, while he climbs that tower, the Scarlet Spider is already inside the elevator shaft, having followed the drones inside. He listens in on them assembling the nuke in an elevator minus the detonator, and Ben quickly leaps in to knock them out. Once they're knocked out, he grabs the headset they're using to communicate with the others. He fakes out the others, telling them to bring the detonator. This really is just like Die Hard with superheroes, complete with walkie-talkies. Now I just expect him to send one of these guys up to the restaurant with a sign that reads, "Now I have a nuke, ho ho ho." Ken Ellis somehow manages to bluff his way past the police and gets inside the tower, deciding he wants to get the inside scoop on the terrorists by going up himself. Despite the cops on the ground stopping his elevator when he goes up, he somehow manages to reach the top, right where Spidey was also sneaking in. Before Peter can grab him, he goes right to the terrorist leader to try to interview him. Oh great, Ken Ellis is actually going to try to pull a both sides article about the terrorists. You know he's getting a job at the New York Times after the Bugle fires him. The Scarlet Spider decides to intercept the guys carrying the detonator. I'll be glad to get rid of that thing too. This nuclear bomb angle is the only part of this whole deal that really creeps me out. Nothing else could be as spooky as that. I mean, have you ever watched the movie Threads? Yeesh. Ben attacks and they drop the detonator in the scuffle, but Ben catches it with his webbing, though it leaves him open to attack. That he quickly recovers from. Back at the other tower, Ken Ellis is actually doing a decent job distracting the leader, which allows Spidey to sneak in and slowly get the hostages out the door while they remain silent, save for the guy who is shot. And yeah, I guess it really was just Don, the terrorist leader, left to guard them when he shot his subordinate. Back over to Ben, he stashed away the detonator, but the cops have come up in another elevator and encountered David, all of them shooting at him. However, it seems that Don and David didn't cheap out with their armor since bullets aren't affecting him. Well, their bullets sure don't seem to be having much effect on that armor the main guy is wearing, so let's see if I can have some effect on him. All over his face! Ugh. Ben tackles David out a window, and we cut back over to Spidey. Ken Ellis is still doing the interview. So you say this techno-train firm made you into what you are? Sure, and my twin brother David, too. It's a really complex and interesting backstory full of drama and heartbreak. And you will never hear about it because this is the only appearance of Terror Unlimited. Hey, where are the freaking hostages?
Folks, I checked the stock and Terror's on back order.
Don thinks that Ken somehow did something with the hostages and holds him out a window, threatening to use his own trigger for the nuclear bomb if he doesn't explain himself. Knowing that, Spidey leaps into action, using his webbing to jam the trigger so it can't be used. Then we get a decent fight scene for a few pages before Spidey knocks him down. What drives a man? Threaten his loved ones and you will find out. Or you could just ask us. Personally, I'm driven by a desire to be as popular as the Bee Gees. Outside, Ben manages to swing up and fire his impact webbing and stingers at David. And while bullets are apparently useless against his armor, Ben's homemade stinger darts are able to pierce it. The impact webbing surrounds the guy. And now, for my final act, I'm bringing the curtain down on you. The play's over, bad boy. Yippee clone A, mother humper. There's a brief, and I mean 2 panels, freak out where it's revealed one of his web shooters is empty, but he just readjusts and shoots the other one.
Wow, they held the tension for a full second.
On the ground, Ken Ellis talks to Spidey as the terrorists are dragged away. Well, you stop a nuclear terrorist, save a reporter from himself. You do all this for nothing. So, what's your point? I'm asking you on a date, you heroic idiot! What's your motivation, Spider-Man? Why risk your neck for us? Because I care, that's all. I mean, mostly I cared about Mary Jane. I moved my ass when I found out she was in trouble, but I guess I'm sort of fond of everybody else, too. And then we have our parallel scene with Ben dropping off his webbed-up terrorist leader to Lieutenant Carr. By the way, the detonators are webbed up and hidden in the air vent just outside in the hall. I know about the second detonator and put it in there with the one I got at some point, I guess. Unless I assumed there were multiple detonators in that bag. Thanks for your help, Spider. I don't know why you do this stuff, But I guess we all have our reasons for what we do.
One of the main reasons I went into medicine was for the laughs.
I risk my neck because I care. That's all there is to it. Certainly not revenge for that one guy, boy howdy. Nope, my other superhero name is Captain Care. And so our comic ends with Peter and Ben swinging off, with Ben seeming to finally notice that Peter was actually here during this, but no acknowledgement of each other. Just an excerpt from Ken Ellis's article. It made the front page. Behind the Terror by Ken Ellis. The headline kept getting changed to be as inflammatory for clicks as possible, plus several notes got slapped on at the end for all the factual errors Ken got wrong that commenters pointed out. When you look at this day's events, the Terror Unlimited crisis and how everyone handled it, it all seems so simple. But nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, when you get right down to it, this entire situation was actually about the safety issues in the subway system. Everyone who was involved in stopping these urban terrorists was a hero. Behind these individual heroes was their motivation. And that's when you realize nothing in life is simple, no matter who you are. Wow, that's a terrible point, especially in light of both heroes declaring, I do this because I care. I know I joked about their motivations a minute ago, but no, the situation really was simple. Asshole terrorists tried to threaten people's lives for money. Two superheroes kicked their asses because they care about people. And yeah, the no matter who you are bit seems to imply, oh, the terrorists weren't simple either, when their motivation really doesn't matter when they're threatening to use a nuke on innocent people! This comic is okay at best. A bit mediocre, but I can't fully say that it sucks. Parts of it suck, though. Terror Unlimited sucks, for instance. They are incredibly lame, nonsensical, and I was going to say one-dimensional as a descriptor, but I struggle to even call them one-dimensional. They are negative-dimensional. A single line of dialogue implies there is a deeper story to them, and it never gets examined. What they are is morons. They are utter morons at every stage of this, and they are so indistinct that the only way to tell their leaders apart from the rest of the drones is that they wear face masks. And since there are two of them, it gets confusing a couple of times to tell which is which. Then again, they are indistinct from each other altogether in their dialogue and motives, so what does it matter? Speaking of dialogue, it's just lame and dull. The final page kind of exemplifies that. It's insipid while thinking it's making a larger point. It's faux deep and feels like amateur hour writing. And to be fair, it is. As I explained in the Mark of Cain review, artist Tom Lyle was promised a chance to do writing when he came to Marvel, so he was given Spider-Man Unlimited to work on. It was a safe bet because most times it didn't really matter much when it's a self-contained story. But unfortunately, while he was a good artist, his writing really needed more work. It's full of empty lines and a plot that should have tension and dread that instead is just kind of bland. So why am I not saying the whole thing is bad? Well, for starters, while I don't like the dialogue, it's not offensive or anything. It's just not good. What is good, though, and what helps sell the book despite its shortcomings, is the narrative structure. Twin Towers, two leaders of the terrorists who are brothers, two separate perils that need to be dealt with, and thus Spider-Man and the Scarlet Spider needing to do their thing without ever even realizing the other is there, ending in symmetry about what motivates them. The bones are there, it just needs to be much more fleshed out. Giving us more synchronicity moments, parallels, or opposing ideas, Scarlet Spider going down while Spider-Man going up kind of thing, punching people at the same time by splitting a splash page down the middle kind of thing. As it is, the book isn't so awful that I have to call it terrible, and it has a premise that really could work well, but instead it never rises above being fine, and that's a damn shame. Next time, before we resume the Patreon-sponsored extravaganza, we've got a necessary thing to get out of the way. Probably should have done it sooner, but hey, schedule slips and Patreon-sponsored videos. It's time for the annual Mr. T review.
Sitting on my couch reviewing comics, the worst words that you will ever see. It's sad that comic
Fusion rate stable, energy flow constant, regulators are working as designed. We've got ourselves a whole new power generator online here. Good to hear. So, how long will this extend the Pocket Universe's lifespan? Roughly an hour or so, then we'll need to wait to recharge it again. You'd think with Comicron One's own massive energy output, that'd be enough. It would be, if we shut off everything on Comicron One and let it fall into the atmosphere thanks to no propulsion, no navigation, no internal computer systems running and taking up power. You get the idea. The ship's own power requirements are enormous. This baby will be strictly for the Pocket Universe unless we need otherwise. Alright, everything about this thumb drive checks out? Whatever's on there is heavily encrypted and needs to be viewed in order to be accessed, but it looks like it's just a video file. Nothing else dangerous about it that I can detect. Still, get ready to cut it short if I send the signal. I'm ready. Right. Good luck. Down and safe. I'm playing the video. If you are hearing this message, it means I've failed. Again. Linkara, listen very carefully because there is not much time and there's too much to say. The timeline you are experiencing has been altered. I don't know in what ways. Sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's really obvious. But whatever has been changed, you are in danger. Everyone is in danger. A group of beings known as architects have altered the timeline. It is not the first time they have done so, and I can assure you, especially since you are hearing this message, that it probably will not be the last. They are already with you, watching, observing, and getting ready to change things. They can't see into the Pocket Universe you're watching this in. At least, they couldn't in my timeline. I wasn't able to stop them, but maybe you can. Just remember, you are not safe. Good luck. Hello my friends, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell for notifications on new video releases. If you'd like to support future videos, you can check out my Patreon, buy merch from the store envy link in the description, or check out the t-shirts available from Teespring. Thanks for watching!